Hi, this is Jamie from Jamie's New Album Interviews. I'm here with David Smith of Gypsies Kiss. If you don't know already, Gypsies Kiss was actually the first band that Steve Harris was in, of Iron Maiden, and formed Iron Maiden. So for all you Maiden fans out there that don't know that fact, it's quite an interesting fact to know. So, David, is there anything you want to say at all?
I can fill you in on the I went to school with Steve Harris story, if you like, and how Influence and Gypsies Kiss were formed and that, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's fine. That's my first question. So, when and where did Gypsies Kiss form?
Right. So Steve and I went to the same school together, Leighton County High School for Boys in East London. He was in the year below me at school. So although I knew him, because he was a year below me, you're never the greatest of mates with kids a year below you, but I knew him quite well. And then when we both left school in '73, long time before you were born, Jamie, I know that.
Yeah.
We shared interests, actually, because we knew each other. We both went to West Ham. We both played football, and we both love rock music. So as soon as we left school, we got together. He said, I really want to be in a band. I want to be a drummer. That didn't happen. And he said, I want to take up bass. And he bought I was with him, a Telecaster copy bass. We formed a band that was just the two of us to start off with, did a lot of rehearsing. We called that band Influence. We went through a few drummers until we settled on Paul Sears, who you know. Mm-hmm. Paul was a friend of a guy I worked with. He lived nearby in Poplar. And a little while after that, Bob Vascoil joined us. I was singing and playing guitar at the time. We did a gig or we did something and I couldn't sing. I had a cough or a cold or something. And Bob came in and did the vocals on that. That sort of suited me and it suited him. So he stayed with the band a bit. So we were Influence from 1973. And we do a few gigs as Influence? I think we did. And we did that first ever gig to People that Steve and I did, which was in, I think, early 1974 at St Nicholas's Hall, Poplar, at an event organised by Dave Lights, Iron Maiden's Lightning Tech, yep, who we knew, for Track Records, who were the record company of The Who at the time, and other big artists. It was an audition we failed, by the way, came second, but that didn't deter us. So, we carried on as Gypsies Kiss for a bit. So I'd known Steve a long time. We were mates, and Paul and I and Bob, we all became great mates. We went to a lot of gigs together. We did a lot together. I was trying to count back when I last saw Paul, some of the gigs we'd gone to at that time. It was like Zeppelin, Floyd, Deep Purple, Bad Company, The Who, Montrose. We were going all the time, learning stuff, as you do when you watch other great artists. And we were playing at the Cart and Horses. That was the first pub gig we played, which I think was in April '74. Thursday nights we used to play there. Friday and Saturday nights were reserved for a band that people lived in the East End, and some of them might be watching this, called Slowbone, fronted by Lee Hart. They were a great band. And I thought the other day, again, when I was talking to Paul, some of the bands that played at the Cart and Horses at the same time we did. Stranglers were one. They were there from time to time. Clement Paul, Toad, just loads of bands who were known in the area at the time. So we played at Cart and Horses. We played at the Bridge House, which is another band that was another pub that was really known for putting bands on, and good bands too. Naruskin. And all that came to an end, I think, in the middle of '75. We were still young, hard to believe now, but I was young then. We all were young. Steve, which is why he's made such a great success, by the way, and I've said this a few times, why he is so successful. He's incredibly determined. He was then and he is now. He wanted to rehearse, play. Paul and I wanted to go drinking, party, out with girls. And Steve said, no, we must rehearse. And we sort of fell apart because Steve had a greater work ethic than we did at the time. But we parted on good terms, good mates. And a few months afterwards, Steve formed Iron Maiden, which was December '75.
Yeah, Christmas Day, wasn't it?
A lot for years after that, until they became successful. They moved on. and I didn't, although we're doing it all again now. And so that was how was the band formed? And it was in the early 70s. It was in East London, and it was primarily because Steve and I went to school together.
That's nice. That's very interesting, David. So my next question to you is, what got you into playing guitar, and was it your first instrument you played?
Well, if you discount playing the recorder at school,
oh, the
and
recorder,
the chime bar, and the triangle, yeah, it probably was. And this was in 1970. And it was just a sexy instrument to play, wasn't it? You know, big rock bands were just coming to the fore. I think Deep Purple and rock had just come out, you know, and there were some great bands that had great guitarists, and we all wanted to be like that. You just wanted to play a guitar. So back at that time, Woolworths, not with us anymore. Woolworths used to sell musical instruments back at that time, cheap musical instruments. When you had no money, it was all right. So they had a range called, so anyone older like Terry, who might be watching this, will remember that at that time Woolworths sold musical instruments in a range called Audition. Now, they weren't bad given they were dirt cheap. So I got a Audition acoustic guitar for, I think, £7. I should have mentioned earlier, £7 was a reasonable amount of money then, given that the first gig Gypsies Kiss ever played at the Cart and Horses, our fee for playing that night, and this was not unusual, was £8 between four of us, £2 each. So, you know, my Woolworths purchased guitar, acoustic guitar, cost £8. And I learned to play that self-taught, as you could probably notice, as you do. And then I really wanted an electric guitar. And my mum, for my birthday, from a junk shop in Leytonstone, bought a Wilson Rapier guitar, which were quite iconic things. They were cheap. And it was bright red, and it looked really smart. I really liked it. It was second-hand. And that was a tenner. That was a birthday present. And a little while after that, again back to Woolworths, they sold amps too in the Audition range. And I had an Audition 30-watt amp that I kept for years. I was really quite fond of it. Played with a fuzz face effect pedal, which are pretty quite sought after now, but they were cheap. And that was it. So I learned to play guitar. The first good guitar I had was a white Fender Stratocaster that I got in. I had it when I was playing with Gypsies Kiss. I wish I still had it now. It was a 1963 white Fender Stratocaster, which I reckon is probably worth about 30 grand, and I sold it for £150. Seeing as I bought it for 70, I did a good deal there. So yes, guitar was the first instrument I wanted to play and learnt to play. Now I play other stringed instruments. I do play mandolin, banjo sometimes, and keyboards, which you can't see but around me in the room here. Not well, but enough to lay down a bit of recording and playing some easy keyboards with some bands I've been with. But yeah, sorry, long answer to an easy question. Guitar was and is still, I think the best instrument to play. I did immediately after Gypsies Kiss came to an end. As Steve were forming Iron Maiden, this is quite ironic, really. I joined a country and western band just to play. And the money was £25 a night, not for the band, for me. So it was really good. That was a lot of money in 75. Called Wildwood Flower, this country and western band was called. A really sexy name. And I like country music then. I still do, by the way. But I was playing bass in a country and western band. Steve was playing bass in Iron Maiden. It's a bit ironic, really, isn't it? That,
different genres.
Short few months I was in a country and western band, which I did for a bit. So bass a bit as well, which I also enjoy playing, but nothing's like guitar. But then, you know that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm a guitarist as well. So talking about all these sort of vintage instruments is pretty awesome. But I'll be honest, I haven't heard of that Woolworths actually stock guitars. It's quite
well, they were their own range, the Audition range. They had an electric guitar, I never had one of those. They had an acoustic and they had some amps. And kids, like we were, with no money, it was sort of where you went to get something. And then almost in East London, and almost in Iron Maiden history, we used to rehearse at a place called Alan Gordon Studios, which was under the railway arches at Leighton Midland, always in there. Alan Gordon had a music shop in Walthamstow where they sold instruments at a reasonable rate. And I bought an SG from there, which I sold a long time afterwards. bought another one since, and a 12-string guitar. So, you try and, I don't know if it's like you, Jamie, you buy guitars, but you never want to sell them. So you just accumulate loads of them, whether you need them or not. I sold a Rickenbacker recently.
Oh, well, that's expensive, isn't it?
Rickenbacker 330, which I bought for 800 quid a few years ago. It's a lovely guitar, but it's it's the sort of bands you can use it in. I bought it as a big fan of Tom Petty. And I doubled my money on that in the case of a year. It's a beautiful guitar. And I'm a bit sad I sort of sold it, really. I thought it just would look nice on the wall with the others, even if I didn't play it.
Yeah, it's a shame when you part way with guitars. I've had to part way with some guitars just due to not being able to afford the guitar, and had to part ways for it to get another one. But no guitarist likes to sell their guitars, so I kind of regret it in the years, definitely.
Yeah, and the other thing guitarists, I shouldn't really say this, for anyone watching, the other thing guitarists always do is lie to their wives about how much they cost.
Yep.
It's just what you do.
Yeah, obviously I'm not married yet, so but when that comes,
so
probably will happen.
When you are, you'll be lying about it.
Yeah, probably will. My next question is, I think you've pretty much answered some of this, but where did Gypsies Kiss used to play live back in the day? Obviously know the Cart and Horses. Where
it was the Cart and Horses in the Bridge House. It was mostly, we did this show, talent contest at Poplar, but the mainstay pubs, not just for Gypsies Kiss, but the other bands that were around at the time, was the Cart and Horses, the Bridge House in Canning Town, and the Ruskin Arms in East End. They were the places you went. And even if you weren't playing at them, you'd have mates in bands who were playing there. And that's just the places you played. And around that time, I knew Doug Sampson really well, and Dennis Stratton. Because Dennis Stratton, who's a lovely guy, and you know that, he was in a band, I can't remember the name, I think they were called Wedgwood, but someone will correct me on that. And they were regulars at the Bridge House in Canning Town. They were playing, stuff from Santana to Elton John, real mix of stuff. And when either that Dennis left that band or that band folded, and Dennis went to RDB, Remustan Boulevard, who were also regulars at the Bridge House, and we were playing down there at the same time. So I knew Dennis from that era, as indeed Steve would have done, which is why he picked him up eventually for Iron Maiden. And Doug was just around with us at the time in various bands. And I see Doug reasonably frequently, as you do, when we're doing gigs and things. And Doug's a great drummer now, but when he was a young lad, he was a powerhouse. I'd say to you, I've never seen anyone hit the drums as hard, than Doug used to do in those days. And when we was at Burfest, time before last, Doug was there, chatting away to him as you do, old mates. He said, "Do you remember that band we were in, me and him?" And I had no recollection whatsoever. No recollection. He said, "Yeah, it was this and it was that." And it all sorts of stuff coming back. So, you're getting old, don't you? We'll forget when you've been in bands with people and they have to come up and remind you. Doug's a fantastic drummer then, as he is now. And a great guy too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Doug's well safe. I mean, we've obviously played with Air Force a lot as well. And obviously playing Burfest and things like that to support the Clive Burr Fund and all that. It's really cool as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they're great events, and perhaps we'll chat about in a minute if we've got time, Jamie. Of course, you and I and Terry, Buffalo Fish and Gypsies Kiss, we're playing a lot of the same, on the same gigs, on our Legacy Tour stuff. And once all this madness we're currently in comes to an end, let's hope it's sooner rather than later, we'll be out doing it again.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, mate.
Yeah. Was there actually any recordings of Gypsies Kiss back in the day that you can?
I get asked that question so many times. There were at gigs. I think at the I know one at the Cart and Horses was recorded, and I say we used to record in Allen Gordon. There were certainly recordings made of which I had copies on cassette. I haven't got them now. No idea where they are. Paul, I think, did have them, but doesn't now. But we're both pretty sure Steve has them, and probably he'll keep them under lock and key. I wouldn't blame him. But yeah, there were recordings, but I don't have them now. Steve may have.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And they would have been doing the songs that you've heard us do now, because the 4 songs we did then that you've heard us do now influence Gypsies Kiss, What Went Wrong, Endless Pit. and Heat Craze Valve. We were playing them as we do now.
Was it any different speed wise? Because Iron Maiden, when they first started, if you listen to the old recordings, it was a lot slower, and then after a while it got faster. And
yeah, they were. They were. I think they were more rock at the time, which was not quite so frenetic as it became in the 80s and later than that. So yeah, I think Pace On was a bit slower, and the arrangements would have been different. Some of the words I'd long forgotten, and then had to try and remember or reimagine. But yeah, essentially the structures of the songs were the same.
Yeah,
yeah, it's good. I don't know if there's anyone about who ever saw us then who remembers it and sees us now. Maybe there is. Yeah, that was the material then. We're doing some of it now, and of course, like you do, like Buffalo Fish does. You're writing stuff all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got loads of songs in the pipeline. Just need to hopefully get through this virus, and we'll be able to play some stuff again. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Another, I should mention this before, I think it's a slightly amusing thing. December 2013, one of the other bands I was in at the time, Front Covers, we were playing at an event in Gidea Park, and which I think Bob Vascall had either arranged or part arranged. It was a football club thing. So Bob was there, Paul came. So we had 3/4 of Gypsies Kiss, with musical equipment in the same hall, and lo and behold, Steve Harris walks in. So the four of us were back together again, together. I think the first time in 40 years. We'd all been together, arms around each other's shoulders and stuff. And I played that gig with the band I was with. And I got to the last song, and I said, because people knew Bob and Paul was there, asked a couple of old mates of mine to come up and join us in the song. Bob got up to sing, he sang great. Paul got up to play drums, and I didn't ask Steve if he wanted to join us on bass, because I thought he wouldn't want to, being legendary bassist he is. So we did a couple of songs, some good fun and whatever. And when we finished, Steve said, we should have asked me to play. I said, I didn't think you want to, so I love playing. And that would have been, for me, quite iconic that the original Gypsies Kiss back together again, playing, even if it was for, only 10 minutes or so. Wish I'd have done that. Who knows, the opportunity may pop up again.
Yeah, you never know. You might walk in on another gig. Who knows? So now to talk about the reunion. Now, the reunion, as I remember, you guys played Burfest. It was quite a big thing. You weren't exactly obviously headliners, but a lot of people were interested in the fact that Gypsy Kiss came back together. Steve Harris's first band at Burfest, and I was obviously there myself. So what prompted the reunion?
Well, I've been asked, I'm sure the others had as well, Paul and Bob, loads of times over the years, would you reform Gypsies Kiss? Why don't you do it? We want to hear the songs, want to know what it's like. And sort of I thought, no, probably not. Is it just looking back in the past, would it be any good? So we didn't. And was it March 18? Andy and Erwin asked us to reform for Burfest. And I sort of thought, well, what the hell? Let's do it. So I asked Paul. Paul would have loved to. Sadly, on that occasion, he couldn't, although he was there, but he couldn't. And Bob joined us. So there were half of us in the band, with some other guys who I knew who played in other bands. So, we reformed for a one-off gig. And as you say, we weren't headlining, but it was huge fun, and we got a really good crowd, as everybody did. And it made me, and I think us, feel, why have we stopped doing this? Why aren't we in a rock band? Why aren't we doing 70s rock again? So I suppose that was it. And we did those gigs on, let's just do one more and see how it goes. So we played the Cart a few times. I think you were at some of those.
Yep.
We played Burfest again after that. I think we played twice more after that. We played Burfest a few times, then the Cart a few times. And then some other venues, and it sort of got to the point that we were asked, well, why don't you record, an album or something? Why don't you do more? So we thought, what the hell? So that was sort of it. So of the original Gypsies Kiss now, there's, but me in it, but some of the guys who have been with that reforming band for, 2.5 years. So we're carrying on. We're playing as many gigs as we can, quite a lot, with yourselves and Buffalo Fish, and in other places. And they may fall by the wayside now. We were due to play a couple of gigs in France in July. We had some festivals lined up. So hopefully that will all come back. But I think the thing for us is that, if we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't do it. And we are enjoying it, so we're going to stay with it. And, my love and affection for it is essentially the Iron Maiden family, who are incredibly supportive. Do more. We want to come and see it. It's great. So we're going to continue doing it.
Yeah, everyone's incredibly supportive, definitely, especially part of the Maiden kind of family and stuff. It's really, really cool.
And well, not in an odd way. I love playing the old songs because it's nostalgic. But probably I'm enjoying playing the new stuff we've written since, just because it's, you can play the spirit of what I would say is classic rock, 70s rock, and just try and modernise it a bit. And, it's going good. Yeah. It's going good. Like yourselves, I think like with Rampant and Buffalo Fish, we're halfway through an album. We've got some songs already recorded, and, clearly we've got more to do. We were hoping to get that album out in September. I don't know if that's feasible now, but, that's what we'd like to do.
Yeah.
I had a single out last year, Influence, and it did all right. Actually did better than I thought. It was on Classic Rock's Track of the Week picked up a lot of votes for that, which was, very flattering. And we released an EP last October, which had the 4 original songs and some others on it.
Which I have a copy of here. Yep, I got a copy.
Yes.
I come prepared.
You've got a copy that I haven't.
Have you not got it? Oh no, it cut out. Why is it cut out?
I don't know if you can hear me. You're back.
Are you back? Are you back? Oh, it cut out. That's like the first time it's cut out. It's all right though.
It's what happens when you put that EP up in front of the camera. Everything blocks out.
Oh.
But yeah, that was out in October.
yeah. So that was it.
This gives me a bit of an opportunity, Jamie, and thanks for that. Is that since we put that out in October, we're now with Roulette Media. Thunderstick is on the same label. And they want to, and we're really pleased to reissue that EP. It's been remastered. Mm-hmm. So we're reissuing it again under Roulette, I think on the 1st of May, and that will have a remastered Influence on it, which the original EP didn't, a different version, and a new single, which is coming out on the 1st of May as well. So that EP is being reissued in May with some new tracks on it, which we're pleased about. It's good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, and as you said, these songs haven't been properly recorded since like the 70s with the original demo that no one really has apart from Steve. But yeah, if you want to buy it, guys, go to, you've got a web page you can buy it from, haven't you?
We have, but we are reissuing it. So I think on the 1st of May, so on our Facebook page, and then what will be on our revamped web page, we'll put some links up. So if anyone wants it, they're welcome to buy it. The bargain at £5, I think. So what can you say?
There's a few T-shirts as well, I believe, that you've got on sale as well.
Indeed, yeah. I should have put one on really, but I didn't.
I still need to buy one. Yeah, definitely. I got a pick, so on the CD.
Good man.
It's all cool. It's all cool. Okay, so I'm coming to the last question. So think of a memorable or amusing memory of back in the day with Gypsies Kiss you can think of.
Oh God, there were so many. I mean, when we first started playing, obviously with Steve, I think I was 19 and he would have been 18. So we didn't really know what we were doing, and it was when pub rock and stuff was taking off. And the one story I often tell, and it was at this audition for Track Records, quite a big deal, So we were, I think, third, fourth on the bill. We were one from the end anyway. This thing. Dave Lights, Dave Beasley might remember this. And we went to play. Everyone was using the same PA as they should do, but it was ours. So the band before had done whatever they did with it. So, you know, at that gig, we started the first song. It was the most horrific feedback, you know, because something had been fiddled around with it. So not the greatest start to our first gig. But the story I tell of that is Steve, and you wouldn't think so, seeing him in Maiden now. He's a very, very, very quiet guy. Very quiet, you know, very unassuming. And very, very shy. You know, before most of our gigs, he'd spend half hour before just in the toilet on his own because he was just nervous. And at this first gig, we did what is now Gypsies Kiss What Went Wrong. It's called then What Went Wrong, which starts off with a bass solo. And then when it gets to a certain part of the bass solo, the rest of the band come in. Steve was so nervous, he had the volume down, he was fiddling around. We all thought he was tuning up. And he's playing this bass intro endlessly, waiting for us to come in. And we're just wandering around looking at each other. And so, you know, that abiding memory of probably one of the greatest rock bassists ever was him standing on a stage as a young lad playing this bass solo endlessly because we all thought he was tuning up because it was so quiet and so unassuming. Steve is now a great guy, but, you know, he's very, very shy. And all our gig instances with him where he was hiding in the back, you know, rather than wanting to be out front of the stage. You go and see Maiden now, which of course you have, that's exactly what he's not doing.
He just jumps around
standing at the front, giving
proper goes for it.
Yeah. No, but they were great times, and Bob, Paul, and I, and indeed Steve from time to time, you know, are still good mates, and we still reminisce about, you know, the fun days we had as kids and partying and doing all of that stuff, and, you know, being lucky enough to make some music, which we all love to do.
Yep, that's the passion. That's what drives it forward. Definitely,
it's passion, mate. It is.
100%. Okay, that's it, David. Unless there's anything else you wanted to say to anyone.
I was going to ask you how Rampant and Buffalo Fish are doing, James. Good opportunity for you to give it a, you know.
Everything's good. Good. Buffalo Fish, we were planning to go in the studio in April, but obviously because of the current situation with the pandemic, it's not happening just yet. We've also, with Rampant, we have demoed about, I'd say, 7 tracks, I'd say, that are going to be on the new album, but they're just demos, so they're rough mixes. But if we can get this all this pandemic out the way, hopefully we'll be back in the studio of Rampant as soon as it's over. And then we've got the EP done. We just need to release it at a certain date, but we're kind of unsure when to release it. Do we release it now when everyone's at home, or do we release it when everything's more active with the live scene and all that? We're not too sure yet. So
no, we got the same dilemma, really. I don't know. Do you put it out when people at home want to listen to it, or do you really want to accompany it with some live shows? Yeah, probably you do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I can't wait for us to get back on a stage. I mean, you know, I'm not saying this because you're here, because I tell Terry the same thing. Buffalo Fish are one of our favourite bands. Just love the stuff you do.
Wow, thanks,
and you remember I came in Camden to see you and Rampant play when you blew the headliners off the stage, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, that was with Fist from Newcastle. Yeah.
You know, blew them off the stage. Must have been pleased with that. It was great.
Yeah, it was a big sound.
Yeah.
No, what it is with Rampant, we just have this proper big, powerful sound, and it's good. And we've got a lot of new songs as well, so
excellent.
Brilliant. Very cool.
Okay, mate.
All right, David, I'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
No worries. Thank you very much indeed.
Take care, guys.